It's now.
I see your co-chair is gone.
Yes, that's why we have a Canadian themed.
Oh,
Because we're missing our usual dose of Canadiana.
We're in Calgary now.
This is also stick handling, and we're doing IP handling.
I did notice that a couple of times we stopped putting the chair up here because he's just going away.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
We should like totally have the chair here as the missing man. That's right.
Do you try to like make a picture? Do you have an iPad? Yeah, do you have an iPad? You could just like take a picture for me and put it right here.
Let me see. I don't know if I have a picture of him that will.
No, you can internet.
You have an iPad with you?
No. If you put like, I think if you put Rtcweb and search and do images, I think he actually comes up.
All right, give me a second.
Large letters in the door, so.
Yeah, so if you Rtcweb and put video, his videos come up.
What is this? Suddenly it's giving me like.
It's a new challenge for seeing where the puck's going to be.
Come on, you haven't torn down the fucking network yet, have you?
No, I had to go to IETF.
Ooh, it's not letting me join. All right. It's an enterprise network. Are you sure you want to join? Please trust us, sir. All right. I'm going to do the crazy ass thing here.
So all minutes have to be meme formatted now, right?
That really takes a challenge that I'm not certain most people have. Real-time meaning stuff.
So, welcome to IETF 97 for the third time. This is the Rtcweb working group. If you were hoping it would be a different working group, you're probably not alone. However, here's where we are. You maybe noticed we're slightly down a chair. We've put a picture of Cullen on this chair to help us remember him. He's already left, but we honor his presence with us in this way.
I still have one bottle of wine of Cullen's and a quarter bottle of gin of Cullen's that he was trying to give away if anyone wants them.
All right, if you'd like to pour a glass out for Cullen, please speak to Ben. Or if you'd like to drink Cullen's wine, go ahead, but two. Apparently, there's also some scotch going if you're not getting on a plane imminently. We are also honoring his memory with a Canadian-themed picture. For those of you who don't recognize stick handling, this is stick handling. Let's see. And we're not able to get away from the stick handling. Where's my frickin' cursor? Oh, my cursor's on the wrong screen. This was funnier several days ago. Note well, if this is your first visit to the IETF, it's Friday, and you'll find that we're kind of punchy on Fridays. But we have some rules about IPR. Please familiarize yourself with those rules, if necessary, by getting Reverend Rtcweb to explain them to you in the back of the room. Talking to a lawyer might be a little bit better if you actually wanted legal advice. However, please do not make a contribution unless you feel you understand it or you don't care. So, it's Friday. You'll notice that we have one thing to talk about, IP handling. Okay. That's okay.
That is an option.
That is an option.
Share it with us. We'll put it up on the screen.
So right now, we're going to let Martin, who's editing the text of this on the basis of the suggestion that's already been discussed on the list from Alyssa. But you may be wondering why we're subjecting you to a live editing session. The chairs really felt like we wanted to get discussion here, real time, high bandwidth, so that when we go back to the list, we can report that that occurred. We do not want to have this come back as a document in Chicago. We want the PR accepted and us ready to move on, so this document can go with JSEP and with the security documents. In particular, because we think without it, the security ADs will immediately go, there's a piece missing to your security considerations, please add same. So while Martin is live editing, I will remind you that the overview draft, Harold also among the missing. Let me update this to be a picture of Harold here for a second. Okay, here's Harold. We're going to be doing this for each missing person. So he has revved the overview document. And the key question here is it had been a normative reference for a whole bunch of things. And so a whole bunch of things are stuck in the RFC editor's queue waiting for it to be not all of them. So some of them will actually pop out once overview is published. So we wish to change theory, which had been that we published overview last, and say, hey, at this point, we're not going to change anything at the overview level. So we want to go ahead and publish it. Is there anybody who has an objection? Okay, then you can expect a working group last call on that as soon as Sean's tiny little fingers can go. I'm sorry? To the list? Okay, I will pop it into an Emacs buffer and get it up in just a second. The other thing is, Ecker, did you manage to give the kiss of life to the security draft yet? No. Okay, so as soon as Ecker has given the kiss of... No, you're here. I don't have to put your picture. As soon as Ecker has put the kiss of life to the security draft, we intend to seek active review of it and security architecture again. We have done this twice so far, but the last time was sadly over a year ago as time has passed on us. But we also intend to bring this to working group last call shortly after the beginning of the year. So for those of you who are counting, we are hoping to take JSEP overview, the security drafts, the IP draft, and the FEC draft to the IESG in relatively short order. That means that we're going to be looking to every single person in this room and a great number of people in that iPad to be giving us reviews on a timely basis. Please prepare yourself. And I see Mark Nottingham, when looking for reviews was mentioned, has exited the room. Excuse me. I have to get a picture of Mark up here. We're just going to do it all off the recording. This is going to be short. If you'd like to jabber-scribe, though, that would probably be polite. Okay, let me get my thing back here. Okay, this is going to actually, I'm going to do this in slides, actually, because this is big enough that if I do it in a single scrolling Emacs buffer, it's going to be pretty hard. Let's do it in Emacs buffer. Never mind. Slightly too large email. Okay. Architect Thompson, to the front of the room, please. Please enter the pink box. Please, I'll be getting a pink box up on it.
Yeah. So here's Mark Nottingham. All I did here was exactly what I described on the list. With one minor tweak to the sentence here, I moved this block up. I did not touch mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, or mode 4. All of that description I just copy pasted. So that's literally from the latest version of the draft from the website. Now, if that's wrong and there's another version in GitHub, you know, too bad.
No,
someone else can handle that.
The one on the website and the one in GitHub are in sync.
There is no draft in GitHub. Otherwise, this would have been in the form of a pull request, and that's kind of annoying.
This actually is in GitHub. I can send you.
Yeah, well, I couldn't find it. I can send a pull request if I get a location.
I will send it to you right after this meeting.
Thanks, Justin. So the change here is that I just rewrote this paragraph after the end. I took Alyssa's text with the amendment that Eka requested, and I put it immediately after that. And then I took the rationale that we had previously, and if you scroll down a little bit further, you will see the rationale that that's
Where? How far?
the other down. So the main ideas for the design are the following. I just deleted the one that I moved up.
So this is also in the Rtcweb mailing list. It was sent there just a few moments ago. So if you wish to look at it on your own screen, please bring up the mailing list text and you can read it there.
So this is the restructuring. We need to change the gathering all possible candidates to fix the bug, but this makes that possible. So gathering candidates at a mode that is less privacy preserving than that's the bit that I didn't get.
This entire system, all this text.
It's copy paste, copy paste, copy paste.
No, are you the entire content of this message that you draft?
Yes, that section.
So,
I'm just copying and pasting text.
okay, so the problem is
Into the microphone since Justin's here.
yeah, I'm using the microphone, that the first paragraph, that the thing under node 1 says you can only use node 1 when you give consent for local media access, and the which I thought was not what we agreed on the conditions about when you'd actually be able to have node 1.
All right, so I confess that I was doing this live, so.
And I mean, my point is that so is this gathering
the design idea?
So is this gathering all? Is this section the thing that is the only thing that's outdated in the screen? Gathering all possible candidates, blah. Is that not? Is that going in the draft or not?
Yeah.
Okay. So right. So the.
Let me try to redo this.
Yeah. I guess I mean. So that seems to me to contradict the statement. Like, let me take a step back, which is forgetting about the text. I think this text is supposed to say is that you can only do mode 1 if you gain some form of user consent.
That is
what
the
this is
consensus we have.
Good. Okay, that's what I thought this was supposed to say. I do not believe this text managed to say that, although it should say several other. Oh, it sort of half does, but then half doesn't. Right. So it says it there, but then oh, sorry, and that the form of user consent is left up to the browser. However, we suggest to you that perhaps one way of obtaining user consent would be to ask for the camera microphone. Is that like?
That's essentially what we have in the text that you can see on screen, but not in the text for mode 1 itself, which is your point. Is that your concern?
Right. I guess what I would say is that, I guess yes, but also I think that if we agree on that's substantive material, then in the section which you've highlighted, like the I would remove the sentence starting with gathering all possible candidates up to the semicolon, because that just creates confusion with respect to mode 1, with respect to the statement in the previous paragraph. That is, the previous paragraph is the
you're
policy,
right.
and then you say this thwarts, and so like basically, like take the stuff after the semicolon, stuff it after the first sentence in the previous paragraph, and then you will have something that's coherent.
Thank you.
That makes sense to me.
All right, let me see if I can do that. in
Namely,
time.
mode 1 must not be used without user consent. Semicolon. This thwarts the typical blah, blah, blah. Finish that paragraph and then stuff on the end where it says mode 2.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. I will also remove the section in the sentences in mode 1, the definition of mode 1, that says, as such, this should only be formed when the user explicitly is given consent. It mentions design rationale number 3 above, which will now be below, and we don't want to repeat ourselves. So I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to send that to the list.
Okay. Well, I think
the
actual positioning of the rationale versus the actual modes, like we can probably discuss that in some thing other than the work of the mailing list. Like that seems like largely editorial of like, do you propose something and then provide rationale for it, or do you sort of explain the rationale and then sort of indicate what falls out of that design idea? So I think the main thing is like, what are the actual requirements, and we should be very clear about that in leading this meeting.
All right, so I tried to cut and paste what I thought Ecker was saying. Did I get it right?
Yes, that was my intent.
Yeah, makes sense.
That is also what I just sent. Go up to the description of mode 1 above. Delete from as such onwards, because that is covered by the stuff we just added.
Delete that?
Yes.
Yes.
Magnus?
And I think, and then in the last graph of mode 2, that's it's mode 2, instead of saying when local media access is not granted, say when consent has not been obtained or something.
Yep.
Yeah, when consent has not been granted. Yeah, let's make sure that we use user rather than consent generally. Done. Is there another above? Yeah, I think we can, or do we actually know what get sock name is? Do we have a definition for that?
Well, it's referenced up in the let's see, the second bullet of the ideas for design, which are now below rather than above.
Problem. All right, so if we move the rationale above, does that actually fix
Let's
that
just
problem?
change this from above to below.
Well, I feel like this kind of editorial stuff is probably not best done in a plenary form.
Yeah, I want this to be hummed today. So it might not be best done in a plenary form, but that's what we're going to do.
That's what we're doing.
Magnus, you've been standing patiently for a long time.
Yes, because my issue isn't around exactly. I looked at mode 4, and I assume this actually includes turn relays, but it's maybe should be slightly more explicit about enumerating. So it's explicit about that proxy includes turn relays because they different names.
That actually is discussed in the section after the modes are defined.
Okay.
Yeah. So the discussion of proxies is important to get right. And as Justin points out, that's later on, because we don't want to say turn relay, because if that's an application provided turn relay, then we get it back into the soup. So I think this is probably okay.
So Are there any other changes to this text that people want now? And Martin, I understand you've sent the replacement text to the list as well?
You've made a few tweaks since I did that. So
Very top, and
Sure.
let's just go through it carefully. That above is still wrong. Put a star next to it, and we can just mark that as to be fixed.
I'm ready.
Next page, please.
Yeah, I'm happy.
All right. Let's not do a hum in this room, but we can decide now, I think. Has everyone read this? Do you want to make sure that the tail end of this is still correct?
So Magnus asked for another moment for this page. So none of this text is really substantively changed, right?
No.
I'm prepared.
You'll notice it goes from 2 to 4.
Down to 3.
Yeah, that was the text.
Now I see the lag. I assume that XLR will compare this.
Let us assume that the editors will be able to translate this into whatever format is most appropriate.
This can be crammed down. That's what we're saying. Does anybody still need to be on this, or can we finish moving down?
So, Justin, I want to.
Yeah.
Justin, I just want to note for you that we actually don't do what's in one. We do 2 first and then bind specifically to the IP address we discover in 2.
I think that's fine. I think, I can relax this language to make it less normative and say, for example, or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't think this forbid what we did. I just wanted to note for you that's not what we actually.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I need
Leave
to
the
do as
text.
part of one pending update to this document is replace some of this language with actual must, should, requirements, strength words.
Yeah.
And I'll just make sure that this is marked without any sort of normative language.
Thank you.
Is everybody ready to move to the next page?
Okay, so in graph 4, this I don't have a problem with this text, but Justin, you're going to want to note that this must is not a 2119 must,
Right,
but rather a sort of
exactly.
fact of nature.
Yeah, we can make that needs to.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, I wonder if return is still a new proposal.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever. I'm just it's I find nitpicking because it's easier to read it. I'm satisfied with this text.
Do we still mention Chrome in this
I
document?
don't believe so. No. There's no reference.
Okay. I made the mistake of copying the old text. That's fine.
So Magnus Westland. So the intention of what's numbered as 4 here is to say if you're using a web proxy also for your web traffic towards the server, that's what you're trying to determine, and then you're in this consideration, or what is it just the immediate path traffic? So is it the communication with the origin server, or is it the WebRTC media traffic that's proxied?
So the intent of the text, as I understand it, is to say if the user is using a proxy for the purposes, and in parentheses, for the purposes of anonymizing their traffic by passing it through that proxy, then even determining that the proxy is in place
it's difficult.
is kind of challenging.
Yeah.
And when you do finally determine that you want to use the proxy for WebRTC, you're kind of forced to use TCP, and that kind of sucks.
Okay. Because now we're into the things that you, unless you have your own turn server, also bound by on the it's not trustable.
That's why we have the return thing.
Okay.
Yep. I think the text says everything that it needs to say in that regard. It's just, we could write the entire essay on why it is, but I think this is enough for the document.
Alan Ford, but I'm a bit confused by how this relates to the difference between 3 and 4 before. So mode 3 forced us to return server. Mode 4 said proxy, but then this is talking about proxies and turn, TCP turn, but TCP turn in the same text. So is mode 4 talking about TCP turn in the previous one rather than HTTP proxies?
Yeah, so mode 4 is talking about proxies, period, which encompasses both web TCP proxies and or the return stuff. Do we need to make that more explicit?
I think so, yeah, that'd be helpful.
And maybe a SOX proxy.
Well, it does mention SOX proxies explicitly there.
Exactly. If it mentioned return, I think it would cover off all the bases. So, no, I think it needs to be a little more explicit. I think what we really need here is a definition of what proxy is.
John, thanks. I think the other point here is this is something which is browser configured, not application configured. That's the point. This is
correct. Yeah, and that's the critical point of the.
I think we're going to talk about the definition of proxies. It probably needs to happen in section 2, where it sort of states the problem for the first time and talks about proxies in the first place.
Sounds like a plan. Should we open that as an issue and treat that as editorial?
Well, I was sort of hoping that we would basically open issues on all these things here, but.
Well, if we get a PR from Martin that covers the conversation today, I don't think we need to split it into multiple issues just because they were raised separately. I think we can treat it as a single PR for all of the text we've talked about so far. The definition of proxy, I agree, is if it goes in section 2, it would be a different PR and probably
that was my point.
Editorial.
I think the PR here should really concentrate on what specific words need to change the definition of the modes and the epilogue here.
So this yeah, sorry, Justin. This paragraph that we have at the bottom of the screen is the critical one. We should keep that on the screen while people contemplate whether they want to say that we're happy with this or not, because I think we just reached that point.
Right. I think, in that particular paragraph, I think that the last sentence probably needs to be altered a little bit to refer to consent. In other words, that if consent is not obtained, i.e. the default case, then mode 2 should be used.
Right. So you mean to say, if consent is not obtained, user agent should use mode 2, then they might choose a stricter policy in certain circumstances.
Otherwise, we're saying, we're talking about consent and everything like that, and then we're saying this, use this by default here, which I think doesn't tie things together.
Sure, I'm satisfied. I have no problem with that change.
Can you actually change that? So I think the words we're looking for, unless user consent is obtained, user agents should use mode 2.
Okay, let me pull this back so I can actually see this for a second. So you wanted to say unless
user consent has been obtained, user agents should use mode 2. And then, though they may That's a good call, Justin. That makes it better. Yeah, he's got other stuff on his screen. Doesn't want to put on the big screen.
You don't want to see his email.
He doesn't want to see
Does anyone want to get to the microphone to speak against this proposal?
All right, so mechanically what will happen now is the PRs will get filed by, yes, I'll send this back to Martin. He'll file a PR against the repo, which Justin will disclose, and then we will go back to the list with the PR for review on the list. But my understanding is that nobody in this room currently objects either to this plan or to this wording. Correct me if I am wrong. Okay. Let the recording that MeetEcho is taking using WebRTC note, since we didn't get any other note taker, that's the plan. Harold, by the way, before you arrived, we agreed that people were ready to take overview into publication, so we'll be starting a working group last call on it, just FYI. That closes the business of WebRTC, RTC Web for, as far as I'm aware, unless there is somebody who wishes to get up to the mic and decide they want to say something else. Seeing none, thank you all for coming. I appreciate your willingness to work this all out in real time when we had folks available. Enjoy the rest of your visit to Seoul.
Do you agree to this? Awesome. Pick the 9th because of Thanksgiving.
Sure.
I assume you're using this.
You know, I have a bottle of wine in my bag, but
Anybody?